from Exodus 34. The Lord said to Moses, "Chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready in the morning, and then come up on Mount Sinai. Present yourself to me there on top of the mountain. No one is to come with you or be seen anywhere on the mountain. Not even the flocks and herds may graze in front of the mountain." So Moses chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the first ones and went up on Mount Sinai early in the morning, as the Lord had commanded him. And he carried the 2 stone tablets in his hands. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and stood there with him and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation. Moses bowed to the ground at once and worshiped. This is the word of the Lord.
Several years ago, one of my dear friends, kind of a father figure to me, one of those guys, like most men, kind of closed. You never really know how they really are, you know? You say, "How you doing?" "I'm fine." Fine, everybody's fine. But I got the sense that something wasn't fine, and yet I knew he would never tell me. And so I went to his daughter, who I knew would know if there was something really going on, and his daughter's just a few years older than me. And I just said, how's Dad doing? You know, is he okay, really okay? And she laughed. She said, "You know Dad, nothing really changes. He's either happy or he's mad." Do you know anybody like that? Are they happy or mad? I see each one of you looking at. Do you know anybody like that? You know, they have a pretty narrow range of emotion, kind of a narrow range of feeling. I mean, I think Carrie would probably look at me. Do you know anybody that are either happy or sad, or happy or mad, or they just have kind of a narrow personality. They have kind of a narrow range of emotion to draw from. Psychologists oftentimes have a wheel of emotion. There's like 7 or 8 dominant emotions, and then they actually splinter out to like hundreds of subsets of different kinds of feeling. And I know men look at that and go, how is that even possible? Like there's that and there's that, right? Literary critics, the ones that study and analyze, the stories that we know and love, Downton Abbey or Pride and Prejudice or Les Miserables or whatever, they look at these storylines and they analyze the plot development and really the character development as well. And what they do is they divide the characters up into 1 of 2 categories. There's flat characters. Those are the ones that are either happy or mad. Whenever they kind of come on the scene, they're scheming. Whenever they come on, they're always scheming. That's what they do. Or they come on the scene and they're always are happy. Or they come on the scene and they're always down. Or they're just kind of flat. You know what to expect. Then there's round characters that they have this range, right? They can be happy. They can be sad, they can be angry, they can have strong feelings of justice, and then over here they're merciful, and it's not that they're unpredictable, they're predictable, but there's a sense in which when they come on the scene, there's kind of a roundness to them, there's a complexity to them. I don't know what your thoughts are about the book series, Harry Potter, but there's a really powerful scene in the 5th book or the 5th movie when there's a character who comes on the scene and you can tell she's feeling this constellation of things. And the narrative goes like this: "Don't you understand how Cho's feeling right now?" "No," answered Harry and Ron. Typical guy answer, "No." Hermione sighed and laid down her quill. Well, obviously she's feeling sad because of Cedric dying. Then I expect she's feeling confused because she liked Cedric and now she likes Harry and she can't work out who she likes best. And then she's probably feeling guilty, thinking it's an insult to Cedric's memory to be kissing Harry at all, and she'll be worrying about how everyone else might say if she starts going out with Harry. And she probably can't work out what her feelings toward Harry are anyway, because he's the one who was with Cedric when he died, so that's all mixed up and painful. Oh, and she's afraid she's going to be thrown off the Ravenclaw Quidditch team because she's been flying so badly. A slightly stunned silence greeted the end of this speech, and then Ron said, "One person can't feel all of that at once. They'll explode." "Just because you have the emotional range of a teaspoon doesn't mean we all have," Hermione said nastily, picking up her quill again. The emotional range of a teaspoon. You know, sometimes I wonder if we think God has the emotional range of a teaspoon. You know, he's either happy or he's mad. We're happy when he's happy with us because we deserve it. And we're glad when he's mad at others because they deserve it. And we just like that. He's happy or he's mad, and we like that. And yet when you flip through the scriptures, God is the most round character of all. Right? Just when you think he's going to do this, he does that. Just when he's supposed to bless this person, he blesses this person. Just when you think, oh, that's not a big deal, somebody drops dead. I mean, you never quite know. You're always on your toes with him, you see. What we see in Exodus 34, the passage that Danny just read, is this constellation or this broad impressionistic painting, this brushstroke picture. It's not everything, but it's this sort of impressionistic painting of God's character. Right? And we've said last week that as we're reading through this, that this doesn't mean that God's a program, that he's programmable. We've said that he's predictable in the sense that by and large, God gives us a sense of his character. It's consistent. He's consistently slow to anger. He's consistently steadfast and faithful. He's consistently this incredible mixture, and this is the challenge. He is simultaneously forgiving and just. He's all of that. Forget the emotional range of a teaspoon. He is the most incredible, captivating, complex, round-shaped character. And this book is about him. And so when we open this book, we better not think, oh, I know what to expect. No, friends, we got to open this book and go, what's going to happen next? This is what God's doing in Exodus 34 is he's showing us sort of the range of things that to look for, the range of who he is. And we said last week from Exodus 3, the primary thing that God is like is not just this character sketch in Exodus 34, it's really his name. That's where he starts. And his name means, I am with you for my purposes. Right, I'm with you for your good, parenthesis, but for my purposes. That's why I'm calling you Moses. That's why I'm calling you Israel. That's why I'm calling you the church. I'm calling you, I am with you to the end of the age for your good, but really ultimately for my purposes. Don't you want to be a part of my kingdom, what I'm doing? I'm saving the world through lots of people like you all around the world. Don't you want to be a part of that? And so what he does in Exodus 34 is he gives us this sketch, this sort of rounded out sketch of this incredible God who we have the opportunity and the privilege to share. And if anything, we don't want to captivate people with the message. The message is captivating, but it's the person. It's the person of Jesus, the person of God. There isn't anything more beautiful, more infinitely complex, more captivating than the one who fills these pages. What I find fascinating is the very basic lead out sort of foundational disposition that God gives to Moses. And we need to hear this, and I've been praying for myself and for us that we maybe hear it a little more, or maybe for the first time this morning. The leading sort of, what would we say is the very leading characteristic, the leading character trait, because the Hebrews were very intentional. You know, the thing that starts out, the thing that is the first, is really maybe the thing that everything else is read through. What is the very leading characteristic of God? The Lord says, the Lord, in Exodus 34, and then he goes into that first one. And what are the two words? They're so tightly compressed. They're two facets. They're two sides of the same coin. What does he say he's like? And if you've got your Bibles in front of you, it says, merciful and gracious. The Lord, merciful and gracious. And to our minds, that those words, how are those different? Aren't those the same? And the answer is no, they're not. Translators sort of wrestle with these terms, particularly the first one, merciful. Merciful, some translations render it compassionate. Compassionate means you love, you love not with your heart, but with your gut. The ancient world thought of the seat of the person's will and emotions was the gut. You love with your belly, right? You feel intensely with your tummy, with your gut. This word, merciful or compassionate, literally is a root form of the word for a mother's womb. It's one vowel point different than that. It's in the same verb family. So you talk about complex. God the Father, who has all the feeling of a mother. Get your head around that. Let me ask you, moms, since men, we're the guys that are like, how can you feel all that at once? Your mind would explode, right? Since we're the ones that maybe, not all of us, but many of us, we can't understand that. Let me just ask you, moms, what were you feeling? Because this is a feeling word. This is God's feeling toward us. What did you feel, moms? And we need your help here. What were you feeling when the baby first started to kick? And it was like, I know I'm pregnant, but oh my goodness, there really is someone in there. What were you feeling when you started putting on a little bit of weight and you weren't like miserably uncomfortable yet, but you were still kind of in that, if you weren't disgustingly sick and puking and maybe you were all of that in the back. Okay, we've got a word from the Lord back there. So you're sick, you're miserable, but in the midst of, so you're feeling that. You're also feeling kind of this euphoric, oh my goodness. What are you feeling when, as the baby's growing and now they're putting their foot in your rib and you've got heartburn and you're eating everything in sight and peanut butter and pickles have never tasted so good together for the first time in your life. And yet you're just watching this and you're already thinking of names. Maybe you know the gender, maybe you don't, maybe you've waited to the birth to know. What are some of the things you're feeling? Tell me, moms. Wonder. Don't be shy. This is your one chance in the sermon to speak. I'm giving you the mic. Here you go. Wonder. Love. Excitement. How about fear? I'm going to be a mom and I'm not ready. What else? It's almost like you can't put words on it. It's almost that infinitely complex. Right? What were you feeling as the baby was born and for the first time you got to lock eyes on your little babe? And then, if the birth went well and depending on where you gave birth, that first time that they put the baby on your chest and you got to nurse and the baby got to find the milk. And I don't know what that feels like, but I can tell you right now as the dad, you know what I felt? I will make sure nothing invades this. I will protect this at all costs. I will give my life for this. I don't know what's going on there, but nobody messes with that. And Carrie, don't do that again. That was really hard and I'm tired. That was the first one. I didn't say that for 2 and 3. At the very outset, what God is doing is he's saying, what I'm like to you is not a thought or even an action. It's a feeling. I feel for you. I am the Father, the Lord, the sovereign one who has all the intense range of emotion. Just like a mother for her child, I'm feeling excited, wonder, love, scared, because I'm calling you, I'm bringing you out, you're entering my plan, and I know you, but boy, I'm working with somebody I'm feeling all of that. What I love about the way God does this is he reveals something that's so infinitely complex, it's even hard to put words on. But at the very bottom, what God is saying, and thank you, Lord, for your grace as I'm trying to put words on this, is what he's saying is, what I'm like is, I am with you for my purposes, and the primary disposition is a feeling. At a gut level, I am all of the stuff and more that we mentioned to you. As my child, as my nation, as my people. That's what I am to you. That's what I feel for you. What he goes on from there is to say, as if that's not rich enough, as if our minds aren't blown enough, right? That's the first term. Merciful or compassionate or like a mother's womb, just this intense umbilical cord of feeling, just all kinds of things wrapped up in one towards you. The next word is gracious. And again, that word's a little like, what does that mean? It can be kind of hang out in the clouds of, what does that even mean? The idea is favor. Really, the word is favor. At God's very heart, in God's, and this is a weird thing to say, but in God's womb, the very thing that he feels toward us amidst all the other things, everything is grounded in the basic feeling and action of favor. And you know what favor means? Favor means, I'm for you. Moms, that's what you were feeling. Under all of those feelings, whether there were 6 or 10 or 200, underneath all of them, and forgive me if this isn't what you felt, but underneath all of them, my sense, at least when I was watching my wife, and as I watch my wife, what I sense underneath all the things she feels is favor. Unless something is really going wrong, if there's something emotionally, psychologically, mentally going wrong, and that's very possible as well, underneath everything moms feel for their child is favor. Let me ask you, moms, have you ever been disappointed with your child? Yep. Have you ever been like, I wish you wouldn't have made that decision? Oh. Have you ever been angry? Have you ever had to discipline in a way, and I'm not talking just spanking, I'm talking like you take something away, you see where this habit's leading, and so you try to get ahead of it, you nip something in the bud. Have you ever had to do something that's, it's hard to do? You take away that video game, you take away that friendship for a time, you put a curfew in place. Have you ever had to do something that, whether they knew it, it actually hurt you more than it hurt them? You were against them in a small dose. You're saying, I'm against this habit. I'm against you using this word. I'm against you watching this thing on YouTube. But see, even in your being against them, it goes further still. You're against them. Why? Because you're for them. So the amazing thing about this is, notice what gets listed last. Judgment, justice. It's 4-1, friends. It's for, against. And even the against is for. What God's trying to show us is, I am with you and I am for you. I think we have a hard time believing that. I'm looking at a group of probably mostly Christian people, and my experience is, we have a hard time believing that. We have a strong, even, maybe it's not even strong, maybe it's just kind of a nagging sense that, yeah, you're with me, but you're not for me. You love me, but you don't like me. You're mostly disappointed in me. You mostly think I should have done this and should have done that. You're kind of just aloof from me. You're not for me. Friends, if we struggle with that, what do you think the world thinks? In fact, I would say favor, the very thing that God is saying, is the foundational thing, the thing that he feels in his womb, as it were. I am for you, is the very thing that we hold up as saying, I'm not coming. You're not for me. I would say though it's the first thing, it's like the thing we doubt the most. How can you be for me when, fill in the blank. How can you be for me when he just left me with the kids and went off and went his merry way? How can you be for me when my job just got terminated? How can you be for me when now I've got depression and I don't know the first thing about how to get out of it and I didn't ask for that? How can you be for me? How can you be for me when you let my dad and my brother die? Do you see how finely tuned we are? How almost at a very basic level, how untrusting we are to just not receive this? We have this incredibly finely tuned instrument in our heart that says, don't trust that. Believe anything else, but he loves you, but he doesn't like you. Yeah, he's willing to send his son, but he's really not for you. He's just trying to clean up your mess and take care of things that you couldn't take care of. Do you see how at every turn, do you see it in yourself? Do you see it in your kids? Do you see it in your grandkids? Do you see it in the people that you want to share the gospel with, but you almost know instinctively that the first thing that's going to go up is, how could God be for me? How do I get through that? I take a lot of stock and a lot of comfort, in fact, that in this narrative, we're actually in very good company with Moses. Because if you read the context, if you read 33 and 34, that's the big question on his mind. See, he's been arguing or talking with God saying, look, if you're not going to go, I don't want to go. Right? This harebrained thing you called me on that I was resistant to 30 chapters ago, I said, why pick me? Who am I? Right? And finally, God just gets kind of angry and says, fine, take Aaron. And he's just, what other excuses do you have? Well, in this section, as he's asking to see God's glory and pass through, notice, like if you look at verse 12 and following, it says, Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not even let me know how or whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you also have found favor in my sight. Oh, I found favor in your sight. Now, therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, show me now your ways, that I may know in order to find favor in your sight. Do you hear Moses going, you say that I have favor. How can I be sure that I have your favor? I want to make sure. What do I need to do? What can you show me to ensure that I have your favor? The verses that follow that, and even after this section where God reveals his glory and gives him his name, Moses' entire insecurity is around, look, I'm not going to go if you're not going to go, and I'm not going to go if I don't know that I have your favor, if I don't know that you're with me and that you're for me. Friends, there's a very real sense in which we need to let God help us, and I don't necessarily know if we need to feel it. It's something, some people need to feel it. Some people, it just needs to sink into their mind or whatever it is. But at a very basic level, what God just wants us to know or feel or whatever is that he is for us. He's for you. And that doesn't mean that he's not ever disappointed. That doesn't mean that he's never not frustrated, or that when we do something, it grieves him. Paul says, don't grieve the Holy Spirit. Our actions hurt and wound. Our actions bring joy. Our motives in our heart, they affect God. But in everything, whether it's happiness, sadness, joy, judgment, whatever it is, underneath all of it is if you could believe it, and this is why coming to faith is a miraculous thing. It's no small thing for somebody to go, I don't believe in you, I do believe in you. Because you know what the chasm is between those two things? The chasm is, you're not for me, to, you're for me. Do you realize how big of a divide that is? People don't operate the same when they're operating out of who is God and how could he be for me, to a humble receiving of that simple, basic truth. That when they hear about Jesus on the cross, what they see more than anything is what God is willing to show us, the lengths he's willing to go to show us, I'm for you. What difference does this make? Well, it makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it, friends? I mean, you could apply this in any basic way. But last week, what I said was, as we're talking about God, and as we're trying to explore what God says about what he's like, it's a very different picture than the gods that we tend to drift toward, the gods that we tend to create in our own mind, right? The images of God that we create, right? So we said that we tend to drift toward the gods of our own making. But the Bible's very clear that whether we acknowledge it or not, it's actually the opposite. We were actually made to be image bearers of God himself. We weren't made to image God. God images us. He makes us to be a sort of embodied presence of him. That's what it means to be an image bearer. It means they will know I am there when you are there. You are representing me. You are representing my personal royal presence. And what I'm like is going to be reflected through, and this is where the hair on our neck should stand up, people like us. The thing that's really kind of sobering about that doctrine is it doesn't go away if you believe it or not. So you either image God well or you image God badly. You don't not image him. That is built into who we are. We are image bearers. And so is everybody out there that doesn't even believe. They're either imaging God well or they're imaging God badly. And the same is true for us. And so my prayer is not that we feel this heaping load of guilt about how we're doing on it, but more the idea of let's look at this God whom he's called to image to the world, and let's see what he's like. And the more that we behold him, the more we'll become like him. The more that we're in awe of him and bow down and worship him, the more open of a conduit we are to let who he is and what he is like and what he's done flow through us to the world who so desperately needs him. Friend, this is not a flat character in the Bible. This is an incredibly complex. God's not asking us to be him, but he is asking us and calling us and empowering us to be like him slowly and over time, imaging all that he is to the watching world to draw people to himself. I wonder, based on the looks of my face, when I'm walking around in public, what do people think God's like when they look at me? What do they think God's like when they look at you? Dane Ortland, in his wonderful book, Gentle and Lowly, said, notice that Exodus 34, God doesn't say, the Lord, exacting and precise. Do people think that when they look at you? Instead of thinking, the Lord, merciful and gracious, or the Lord, in the womb of wombs of him, he has favor, he's for you. Do people see that, or do they see the Lord, exacting and precise? Or do they see the Lord, tolerant and overlooking? Or do they see the Lord, anxious and frustrated? Make no mistake, people are going to build an image of God based on what they see in us. And I don't know about you, that's a very frightening, daunting, humbling thing. It's also this huge sort of dignity that God gives to us. That though we're not perfect, far from it, God has chosen from the very beginning to make people his image bearers. That wherever they go, people will know that I am there. That's my chosen way to rule and reign in the world and to make my kingdom known. Friends, the basic disposition of God, what he feels in his heart of hearts, in his gut, in his womb, as it were, is that he's for you. And my prayer is that we would actually let that stick.